Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's having a fantastic Wednesday. Thanks for joining for another awesome Wednesday happy hour. I'm really excited to have Hillary, otherwise known as Autobody Barbie, is going to be joining us. If you're not familiar with her, after this is over, you're definitely going to want to go give her a follow and check her out. Hopefully, she'll be joining here soon. Oh, we've got a visitor. This is Handsome. That's his name because I'm super creative. His name is Handsome. And apparently he's decided he wants to join us. And so does Hillary. So yay. She should be here in just a second, waiting, connecting. Yay!
Hey,
Hi, how are
hi.
you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Hi, lovely.
Hi.
So cheers.
Cheers.
Ooh, what do you drink? Red wine?
Wine. To make sure I filled it up enough so that I didn't have to get up.
Smart woman, smart woman. Oh, so what are things? So for anybody who doesn't know, Hillary is up in Canada, and so obviously the pandemic is all across the world. But how are things affecting you up there right now for folks that are here in the U.S.?
I feel like we have relatively low number of cases, but we're still in we've been pretty much locked down, I want to say since March, and just today they've kind of started letting they call it the phase 1 of things reopening. So now it's
Okay, that was
you can,
today.
yeah, you can go
Oh wow.
into a hardware store. So, but it's still there's no restaurants, there's no bars. It's still only essential businesses open. They just opened up parks, I think, are
Okay.
opening this weekend, but it's still pretty everything's very, very restricted still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're kind of all across the board here. Like some states are doing one thing, some states are doing something totally different. It's kind of crazy town. So
Yeah.
how is it affecting you? Are you guys still working? I mean, I've seen your happy hours at the shop. Like you're still able to work. It looks like you're considered essential.
Yeah, we are. All automotive falls under essential, and I think
Yeah.
dealerships as well. So we're still working. I have one girl who, I gave my employees the option of taking a layoff if they wanted, because obviously I don't want someone to come to work if they're not comfortable. So I have one girl that's still on layoff, and then there's just three of us working.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's it been?
It's been good. I mean, there was the initial period of I think when the whole thing started and no one was really sure what was going to happen, and same with us. I'm like, oh my god, are our customers going to start coming in and pulling out their cars? It was just, there was all this uncertainty, but it seems to kind of be just business as usual. And I'm lucky in the way that I don't get a lot of walk-ins or people coming
Yeah.
through with quotes. So a lot of what I do is by appointment anyway. So we're able to kind of and we'll do pickup and deliveries for we had a lady who wanted her little bumper painted, but she's like, I have health issues, I haven't left my house in 7 weeks. So we picked it up with our little
Good.
masks and dropped it off to her. And but
I love it.
it's been okay. Yeah, just kind of taking it one day at a time. It's a weird
Right.
thing to live through, right? There's no guidelines for this, so we're just taking it day by day. And
I love the
super
creativity
grateful.
though. Like I love seeing how different businesses are handling things and getting
Yeah,
creative with what they can do differently to accommodate their customers, to accommodate their employees. I feel like it's really differentiated, especially in the auto side of things.
for
The
sure.
good shops from the bad shops, right?
Yeah.
The shops that say they're all about their employees, but then don't do anything for them, or the shops that say
Yeah.
they're all about their customers and then are not making accommodations. So it's
Oh
very
yeah.
interesting to see that unfold.
Yeah, absolutely. I find it's things like this that make people's true colors kind of show, right? Whether it's an employee or an employer, it's okay, wow. I have some friends who are working in shops where hand soap or sanitizer wasn't even really provided for them, and the owner has the mentality oh, it's not the big deal, it's just the flu, basically just shut up and just go to work type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen
Okay.
a lot of sense of entitlement from auto shop owners, well, we're essential, we're allowed to do whatever we want. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, We still live in society with other
Right.
people.
Yeah. Yeah. You still gotta think about like other people besides yourself. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's good. I'm like super grateful that we can still keep working. And like I really feel for, like restaurant owners. Like restaurants haven't been able to operate since like March. Like that's
So are
like I
you guys, you can't even do curbside with restaurants?
we can. Yes, we can. But like,
Okay.
like the little bars who don't ever offer like takeout and stuff like
Right.
that, and they're saying like they can't pay their rent on just like trying to do that as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's tough. It would be tough.
It's been interesting for sure. But so I've got to rewind because we just dove in with saying hello to each other and technical difficulties and whatnot. But we've got to introduce you to everybody out watching in Instagram land. So, everybody who is out there, this is Hillary.
Hi.
Also known as Autobody Barbie. She is the owner of Ink and Iron, which is an all-female auto body and restoration shop up in Canada. And why don't you tell us all, grace us all a little bit with a little bit about who you are, what you do, what your specialty is, and then we'll dive into some more deep stuff.
All right. So I am an auto body technician. So I got my start as a co-op student in high school. So I'd always had an interest in cars. Like all through high school, I took the automotive mechanics class, and initially I thought I wanted to be a mechanic until I realized anything to do with wiring or electrical made me want to blow my brain out. So around that time, I kept getting grounded. So my punishment when I would get grounded would be my mom would take away like my driving privileges. Like, you can't drive the car. So me at 17, I'm like, I'm going to buy my own car. And like, I'll show you, mom. So I basically like pawned everything I owned, which was like a book collection and random things. And I got $1,000 and I bought a 1970 Oldsmobile, which
Wait, the book collection.
it was Goosebumps, a lot of Goosebump books and like R.L. Stein books. Like I'm a huge, honestly, I'm like a huge book nerd. Like I love reading, especially through my childhood. Like
That's
I
awesome.
So upon that, raised $1,000, bought a 1970 Oldsmobile, which obviously living in Canada was like a huge rusty pile of crap.
Right.
So I was kind of looking at it and I was like, I want to learn how can I fix this? How can I make the body of it look pretty? And I was in my grade 12 year. I was done on my credits. So there was a body shop close to my parents' house. So I went and I asked if they would be willing to take me on as a co-op student. And they said yes. And it was a really great experience. Like they kind of just threw me right into the mix, like right away. I don't feel like they ever treated me any different than as if I were a dude. And then I was hooked. Like I've been in the industry ever since. In Ontario here, we have an apprenticeship program for auto bodies. So
yeah, can you actually rewind and explain for anybody who doesn't know what a co-op student means? Because Canada does things very, very differently than the way a lot of places do, as far as certifications do and licensing for both mechanical and auto body. So explain what that is.
So co-op, they give you the option to do a co-op usually in your grade 11 or 12 year of high school. And it's just a way for you to get credits without actually taking a class in school. So for people who have an interest in trades, or maybe they don't want to pursue like a college or university route, and it's very much treated like a job placement. So you have to go in for an interview and bring a resume, and it can be either like a half day or mine was like a full day. Cause
okay.
Like
so it's like a work study kind of thing.
Yeah. Like, because I didn't need any more credits to graduate, and they had me like enrolled in just some like bullshit, like another music class and another chemistry. And I was like, well, I want to, I know I want to do a trade. So it's like, and it's a great way to like, to try something without any like commitment. Like, I don't think I ever would have pursued auto body if I hadn't have gotten the opportunity to try it as a co-op. Like I had no idea what it was about. And even in high school, like we had all these presentations from colleges and universities, and like not one person from a trade ever came in and spoke to us about like anything to do with trades. It was almost like if you're like, you go into a trade if you're too dumb. Like if you can't get into college or university, you are almost made to feel like less than. And that's what I love. Like now sometimes when I go to high schools and like I've been lucky enough to speak to a bunch of high school girls, like, you girls are so lucky. Like, this didn't exist when I was in high school. Like, you're getting this whole other world opened up to you. And it's amazing.
100%. Yeah. No, I was actively discouraged from it when I was in high school. Like, they didn't tell us about it. We didn't know about it. And then if you did raise your hand and say, I want to do this, it was like, no, 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 you don't want to do that. That's not what you want to do. You want to do something different.
Yeah, yeah. Like go to school, get a degree, right? That's
Yeah,
basically what we were told.
totally. So you went to this body shop just strictly because you wanted to make your car prettier.
Yeah, because I wanted to learn. Because I'd taken the I took the engine and in my little mechanics class that I was doing in high school, like learned how to like rebuild the motor of it, and then it's like, but how do I make the outside of it nice? I think and two, I think being a girl, like we like that. I feel
Oh,
like we're like
totally.
aesthetically, this is not pleasing me. Like I don't like this rust and the faded paint on it. So I was kind of like, how can I make this nice?
It's funny because I obviously went down the mechanical path, you went down the body path, right? But like my first draw into automotive was my Volkswagen Bug. And it was the same thing. Like I didn't really necessarily care about the mechanical portion of it at that time when I was like 15, 16, whatever. Like I just wanted it to be cute. I wanted it to be cute. I wanted it to be pretty. I wanted to make the paint nice. I wanted to make it purple. Go figure. Shocker.
That's where it started.
But like that was the appeal, and that was kind of like my first thing that I did. But auto body was never like like I wasn't exposed to it as a possibility, like that was an option. And even my high school, we had mechanical auto shop classes, but we didn't offer any sort of body or paint like that.
Yeah, mine either.
It wasn't a thing. And that it's such a shame.
It's
such a shame. Like we wonder why we have such a trade deficit, right? And yet, like we have so many kids who would be great at it and like aren't even getting exposed to it.
I know. It makes me like so upset. And even like when I go to these conferences, like I meet like women and men that do trades that like I have no idea about. I'm like, that's cool. Like I learned something about like I met a chick who was she was like an aircraft mechanic for Bombardier. And like hearing her story and like what she does every day, I'm like, that's really cool. Like there's so many trades that I love hearing about that like I don't know anything about.
Totally. Yeah. I agree. What do you think? How do you think it's different in Canada with licensing and everything? Because you guys have a whole separate like way of doing things than we do. Like, how does that all work? Once you get out of high school, you decide you want to pursue a trade. Tell us what that's like.
Yeah, so we have trades that are called restricted trades. So like to be a mechanic or to be an auto body tech, it means you have to go through like a whole licensing process to be able to do these trades. And they actually have like little enforcement guys that will come around to every shop and make sure you're either like they'll check and make sure you have your license or that you're registered as an apprentice. And I think like their intent with that is, for auto bodies to make sure you don't have these little like underground hack shops like welding cars, cutting cars in half and welding them together. Like that.
You mean that's not okay?
It works sometimes. we all have like the same standards of training and yeah, and I think it also helps with like our pay scale because like I said, you're not having all these like shady guys coming in saying like, oh, I'll do this job for like minimum wage. So everyone's kind of, it raises like the quality of our trade. Yeah. So for auto body, for example, it's about, you have to have 7,200 hours, I think a little over 7,200 hours working. You get a little booklet that has all these skills. So then your boss or the licensed tech you work under will, sign off on each little skill that you complete. You have 3 levels of schooling. Each level is 2 months each. So you do all that. Then you go to a government office and you have to write like a big, we call it a CFQ, a certificate of qualification exam. So you write that. And I think you have to get over 70 to pass. And then they mail you a little like license that says like, I'm a journeyman or a journeyed person now, I think they say.
Right. I think it's so awesome. I wish they would bring that to the US. It's interesting. It's a really polarizing topic. I'm seeing some of the comments. There's a couple of people saying like, oh, like we should do that in the US. And that's actually surprising to me how much support I'm seeing in the comments on that. Because normally when I bring up certification, especially around mechanical shops, they're like, no, right? Like really? They're like this awful thing, like mandated certifications. I'm like, God, my nail technician, well, I did these myself, which is why they're awful. But, all the salons are closed right now. But normally, my nail technician needs more certification than I do as a mechanic. And that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
That's absolutely crazy. Yeah, somebody just said ASC certs are the only thing we have, and that's true. Like that's the closest we have, and that's awesome, but it's
Yeah.
voluntary, and we don't have. I feel like what you guys have, and tell me your perspective on this, but I feel like I would think that having the certification and having the levels and the standardization and all of that makes it like a more respectable career, like it's
Yeah.
taken seriously, and that would make it easier for women in the industry too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, technically I could say like I have a college degree. Like I have a college
You do.
degree because I'm an Autobody tech, and like I feel like I don't know if anyone on here is from Canada, but I think the mechanics apprenticeship is like even longer. It's like 9,000 hours. But I feel like with both mechanical and auto body, like especially collision work, it's like if you're doing something improperly because you are uneducated, like you could jeopardize someone's life, whether it's not knowing how to repair brakes or sectioning a car improperly. Like you're playing with something that's carrying like a family. It could be carrying a family of people. So why aren't there like standards for training or standards for you to be able to touch this? Like absolutely.
100%. You know what I think is really going to force the issue in the US is going to be autonomous vehicles and that kind of stuff, all the self-driving cars, because as you get, like, do you deal with this with, because you do a lot of restoration stuff, but you do collision stuff as well, right? At the shop?
I do only like cosmetic stuff, like little fender benders. I don't really get into like heavy collision or structural stuff just because I'm not equipped to do it. Like,
but you get into newer cars
outside of my.
So have you dealt with like parking sensors and like aligning things and like all of that kind of stuff?
Sensors, yes, but like not to the how crazy it is today, where like you pull a windshield and have to like recalibrate everything.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the crazy stuff, right? Like we get into these cars that like if you calibrate it wrong, all hell breaks loose, right? So if you have somebody who isn't qualified, who isn't certified working on these vehicles, like that's a scary thing. So I think that's really going to push the issue, but it'll be interesting to see how things go. But in the meantime, I'm jealous of you guys in Canada and your systems and your certifications, and I'm jealous.
It's good. I think it's good. And it's also like, it's a great way to get people into the trades because here, so when you go to school, you get unemployment. They pay you basically unemployment insurance and travel expenses to go to school. Every time you finish a level, they give you grant money. You get like $1,000, just a grant to spend on tools. You get your license, they give you $2,000. Like they incentivize it really well to get more people into the trades. Like that didn't exist when I went through. It came in like 2 years later. I was like, oh, but like
that is awesome. I didn't realize that. That is super cool. And that's
you'll hear people that are like, oh, I can't afford to go to school. But it's like, no, now they've made it that like
not here.
Yeah.
Not here. I mean, yes, there's a ton of scholarships, there's a ton of grants, there's a ton of things, but and there's something to that. Like you have to really work for it. You have to go after it and seek it out. But the challenge is if you don't know that you don't know what you don't know, right? So if you don't know that there's money out there, you're not going to find it. You're not going to go after it. You're not going to be able to do it. And like we complain all day long about the trade deficit, but what are we doing about it?
I know.
What are we actually doing about it from a government standpoint to incentivize? That's awesome that they've incentivized it so much.
Yeah, and they even have like at the college where they run these programs, they run one through the summer, and it's basically for like underprivileged like youth who could not afford to go to school, and it's free for them to take. So they come, I believe it's like 8 weeks. They take an 8-week auto body program. They learn the basics, and then at the end of it, they have a big job fair, and they guarantee them all a job placement.
Oh wow!
So it's like that's huge, and like
that is huge.
Some of the kids are like, like they don't really give a shit about being there, but some are like, some are like, you can just tell like this is such a huge opportunity for them, and they're gonna do really well. So like that's cool too, right? Like I feel like we're really here like trying to get as many people into trades as we can.
I love it. I love it. Do you know if the numbers of women in automotive are higher in Canada or not? I don't know that.
I don't off the top of my head, but I feel like I was just talking about this with someone the other day. Like even in the GTA area, like how many women that I know that work in auto body or like a mechanic, like there's so many of us just in like a
Yeah.
small area. I'm like, I feel like this is like higher than it should be, like
It's
proportionally.
awesome.
Yeah.
They're all moving to the area to be near you is the thing.
I feel like Toronto itself, it's such just like an accepting city of, it's so multicultural, so we're accepting of like race and gender and like everything, that like a woman doing a trade isn't like a big deal, because there's so, you know, everything's just going on and everyone's just like, I'm cool with you, this is cool, this is cool. Yeah, like I find I get a lot of people, I get even people that like come in, they'll like walk into the shop and then they'll like talk to me and then we have our conversation and then they're like looking around, they're like, oh, it's all girls that work here. Like after the fact, like, oh,
that's
cool.
awesome.
Just, like carry on their way.
So, I mean, I know on social media you promote that you're an all-female shop. In your like, do a lot of your customers not know? Like, do you find?
Yeah, some actually don't. Some have come like because of word of mouth, and I guess it was just never like, it was never an issue, and like that's cool.
That's
to me.
amazing.
Like, yeah, I
like that's the way it should be.
It should be. And then like, you know, I always get this feedback that like, because my shop is like women owned and operated, they're like, oh, you hate men and like you're a stupid feminist lesbian. I'm like, being like promoting women in this trade does not mean anti-men. And like, all I want is that. Like, I want, when, I don't know if it's the same for you, but do you ever go out and you meet a whole bunch of new people and then like inevitably it comes around like, oh, what do you do for a career? And you're almost just like, you don't want to say it because they're gonna be like, wow, like that's not a job for a girl, or like you get all these questions. Like I just don't want it to be a big deal. I want it to be like, cool, you paint cars, or like, cool, you're a mechanic, like next.
Right. And one day, like that's, I mean, that's what you, I mean, I think the reason why you and I get along so well, right? Like, is that's our vision. That's our mission, is to make it not a thing, but the reality is it is right now. And I love that you're experiencing it in such a positive light that people are like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like that's the way it really should be. And yeah, I'm so tired of that. Oh, because you're pro woman, you must be anti-man.
I know.
Like, no, men are great. I love guys. They're wonderful. But I also love, like, I love supporting and empowering women and promoting women. And the reality is that there is only like 2.5% of tradespeople in the automotive world are women. Like only 2.5%, if that, right?
And like I've met so many women, like, you know, younger, who really want to get into this trade, and for them to walk into a shop that's like full of men, even if they're like the coolest, raddest dudes, it's like, it's so intimidating that it will stop them, whether it's from like a bad experience from like their past life, or it's just like hard for them. So giving them a place to like, because as your skills grow, your confidence grows, right? So giving them a place where they can try it and grow skills and then like go out into the industry with like that confidence, like, hey, I can do this, or I belong. Like that's all I want. And that's how like I feel like I can do my part to make this industry more co-ed. It's just, or like even just giving them an opportunity where everyone else is saying like, no, like I don't know if I want to hire a girl, or like I'm not hiring right now, and just giving someone a chance, right?
Yeah. Totally. And not everybody's going to work out. Like I remember talking with a shop owner once, and he was like, I had a female mechanic once and she was awful. I'll never hire a female mechanic again. And I'm like, okay, let me ask you a question. Have you ever had a male mechanic who was awful? And he's like, yeah, of course. I'm like, so did you stop hiring male mechanics?
Right.
Like, come on, your logic isn't working here, right?
Yeah.
But it is. There's a lot of people who still are not open to hiring women, and so if you can create a chance just to give them their starting point, right? Like, where yes, you can try this, and maybe you're not going to work out, maybe you're not going to make it, maybe you're going to love it, but
yeah, good. Or like maybe it's not going to work out with me, but maybe you'll find your place and like be happier, right? Like if I can just spark that passion.
So do you often take on like entry level or beginning level folks?
Yeah, I do a lot. Yeah.
So a ton of training on the job.
Yeah. And I try to like, how I got my start, like I've had like 4 co-op girls so far. 3 have worked out, 1 not so much, but I'm like
pretty good odds still. It's actually really good.
I'm a big supporter of like co-op as well. And yeah, just I feel like most of my girls have been, you know, like minimal experience, but then like, you know, I try and like balance it with like a couple girls who are a little bit more experienced so that we have a good like learning to skilled ratio, or just
Yeah.
like on Saturdays I've been trying, before the whole like world shut down with the pandemic, I was trying to do like a volunteer thing on Saturday, because
Yeah, I
I'm
saw
like,
that. I love that.
I'm to the point where I get like too many resumes, and like I wish I was a millionaire and could just like have this
Right.
huge shop and like hire everyone
Here's
to come
to that, please.
right? But I can't. So I was like, I'll you know, maybe on Saturdays I can have like girls who want to learn come out, and then some of my girls who are more experienced can like, you know, help teach them, and that's like rewarding for them as well, is to like pass on
Totally.
what they've known. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you saw that's what we're doing at Girl Gang Garage, right? I mean, that's
I
what
know.
you saw. It's like that joy, and people laughed at you when you did that. Like, why would you go fly somewhere to work? Like, you
Yeah.
work at home. Why would you go do this? But it's a totally different thing, because you're sharing your knowledge, you're teaching, it's camaraderie, it's all of
Yeah,
it's all
and
of the
you've like
rest.
created such an amazing thing that like women want to fly in from all over to like help, right? Like that's
It's
so
because it's a
cool.
party, really. No.
Singing in weird voices is what we do.
We did a lot of singing and a lot of interpretive dancing
Yeah, a
while
lot of
working on
sleepless
that
nights.
truck. So for those of you guys who don't know out there, Hillary came out during the High Yellow all-female build, and spent a lot of intense hours doing intense body work on that thing. And we were a little delirious.
Yeah,
We had some fun.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I can't wait to come back.
I can't wait for you to come back. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
So how long have you had the shop?
I opened in April of 2015, and then we moved to where I am now in February of last year. I don't know.
Okay.
So I've been where
Nice.
I'm at now for a little over a year.
Okay. You liking the new building? Because it was way bigger, right?
It was about it's about 1,200 square feet bigger, but it's quieter. Like where I opened before was, it was just like a row of like automotive. Okay, so let me just back up. So Dan, my husband always says this is the weird thing about Canada, is in like each city they have a little block that they designate for like automotive zoning. So like
Okay.
you don't just find like random shops all over. So I was
Okay.
in a very like big automotive area. So it was a plaza with like 4 other body shops, like truck repair, just like junk all over, and a bunch of like sketchiness happening. And it was like, you know, people like rip on it, or I would even rip on it now, but it's like that was my start, right? Like that's
Yeah.
where I started. And
There's
like
nothing wrong with that, girl.
I even saw like some of my old neighbors from there came out to visit, and I was like, I honestly, like, as weird as it sounds, like I miss the riffraff, like of the drama with tenants, or like sometimes the police would be there because people would be fighting. But like,
Okay. So I've got to tell you, well, I guess it was the second building I was in. We were in a similar sort of thing. It was like a strip of auto shops, and I shared a parking lot and a bathroom with this other shop. So like there was a bathroom like in between our two
a
shops.
bathroom.
It was awful, and they were like the worst shop ever. Literally at least twice a week, somebody would call the cops on him.
Oh no.
It was ridiculous. So there was always all of the drama, like all of the drama. So I totally relate. I don't miss it. I never missed it. But I will say it was awesome because he was like free advertising. We actually had it was amazing. One day his the owners, I think it was his like grandma, snuck in the back door of our shop and asked us to work on her car. And she was like, I can't tell him I'm over here, but I don't want him to touch my car.
Oh my god.
It was amazing. But I'm glad you moved away from the riffraff, from the drama and the cops.
I did, but it's like, it'll just always like feel like hold a special place in my heart, because I feel like that moment when I got the key to that shop, like it's just such an indescribable feeling. I was like, this is what I've wanted since like I started when I was 17. So like 12 years later, to like, I remember just hearing, you know, like, oh, you've been approved for like your lease or whatever, and just be like crying. Like, I'm like, I can't believe like this is actually happening. So, you know, it's like, it's shitty and it's easy to rip on, but I'm like, you know, that was my start. Like that was my very humble humble beginnings, and it'll always hold like a place in my heart.
Yep,
So yeah, we moved
absolutely.
to now I have like a building that's freestanding. It's in like a way quieter area, a nicer town, so the police aren't there all the time. Yeah, a little bit more space, kind of a better layout, but
Nice.
it's really nice. Yeah.
So how did, because I hear this, you said you've been wanting to do this, since you were 17, right? And I
Yeah.
hear that a lot, especially, I mean, I hear it from trades folks all the way across the board, male, female, auto body, mechanical, electrical, whatever, you name it. I hear kind of nonstop, like, I want to open up my own shop one day. I want to have my own business one day. Like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
How how did you how did you make your transition, I should say, from working in the industry to opening your own place, and what did that journey look like? Because I feel like a lot of people, they see you now,
Yeah.
right? And they're like, oh, look, she's got it made. She's rocking it. She's super successful, like
It's a
totally
trap.
doing
Don't
the
go there.
most, right? And they're
Right.
like, I can do that too. I want to do that too. And I'm not saying they can't. I think
Yeah.
anybody can if they work hard enough. But I always like sharing the backstory, right? Like the struggle and the journey and like what went into it. So how did you transition to becoming a shop owner?
Yeah. So it was like it was a struggle for me being like because I'm a very like impulsive and impatient person. So for me at like 17, like I want to open my shop right now, but then and I think like that's where the apprenticeship program helped because it forced you to put in your time. So
Yeah.
that was like something that I knew I wasn't quite ready for yet. So I worked like full time, 44 hours a week. I've only ever taken like 2 vacations, like 3 weeks total in those 12 years. I worked at a production shop doing like prep work where we pushed out 100 cars a week. I worked at a restoration shop doing like really, really top notch restorations. And then I had gotten to the point in my career where money wise, I was making pretty much under like the top person who had been there way longer than me. So I was like, money wise, I'm like topped out. I work at one of the top collision shops in North America. I've worked at our best restoration shop. I was teaching college on a part-time basis, and it was kind of like, okay, I've kind of hit my ceiling money wise, and I feel like I'm not being challenged anymore. Like I'm kind of like I feel like at that point, like I'm at the top of my game. Like I'm confident. I feel like I know what I'm doing. I've like earned that respect in my workplace. And then I was just kind of like I think like it's my like do or die moment and living in Toronto and not making a lot of money and basically living paycheck to paycheck. I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to afford this? Like, I can't just go to a bank and say like, I've never owned a business before. Like
Right.
I don't even know, I was making like 70 bucks an hour at the time. Like give me a bank loan type of thing.
Right.
So I kind of got like resourceful. So I did a lot of like Googling for like months prior. I found the platform Indiegogo. And I was basically like, I'm going to try this. So I launched an Indiegogo campaign and I was super fortunate in the way that it really kind of went viral. Like I got a lot of media coverage and I was able through Indiegogo, I raised about $15,000, which basically paid like my first and last month's rent and a security deposit, and like just bootstrap my business from like here on
Right.
up. And that would definitely be like one piece of advice because I'm always of the mentality like doesn't matter if I don't have money in my bank, like I'll just work extra hard, but like that's super stressful. So make sure like you're prepared and you have a safety net and like some backup cash or backup line of credit. Like that was one thing that was really tough for me to learn.
Yeah.
And yeah, like the transition from being a technician for so long to being a business owner, I think is tough because initially I think everyone's going to be like, it'll be great. Like I'm going to work on what I want, when I want, and be really selective. But like, then you get railroaded by this reality that's like, no, bitch, you're going to be the bookkeeper, the manager, the janitor, everything but working on the cars someday. So
Yeah.
transitioning like into doing that was tough. And I think just like aligning yourself with people to help you, like for me, I'm not organized. I'm like so scatterbrained. So finding a bookkeeper was like key for me. Like
Yeah.
just aligning yourself with people who can help you where you feel like you're lacking. And that was like, that was something that I still lack in. So yeah. It's kind of my ramble.
No, I'm like, I'm amening everything that you say, because gosh, it was like, I didn't do an Indiegogo to start my business, but I had $200 in my bank account, and that was the biggest mistake that I made. I didn't have that safety net, and thankfully I was really young when I started my shop, because I had that energy, right? I'll just work really hard. I'll just, right? But
Yeah.
it's not sustainable. Like, yes, you can push through and you can like just grind it out and grind through, but it's not sustainable. And eventually you do have to rely on other people and find an accountant, find somebody who can support you with the things that you're not great at. And I'm the same. Like, I think we're like soul sisters from another.
I know. Totally.
I love it. Very cool. What would you say has been like the biggest challenge you've faced getting to where you're at? Like, is it the money piece? Like, was that the biggest challenge, or like, what do you think in getting to where you're at?
Money wise, like not so much. I feel like because I've lived on my own pretty much like in my early 20s, so I've learned to live like almost like broke, right? Like being 20 and paying for an apartment, like I've learned to live like very frugally. Like I don't have fancy clothes or fancy cars. Like I'm fine with not having materialistic things. So like
you'd like, ruin it anyway working in the body shop, girl.
Right, exactly. So I'm like I can survive like that. Like that's okay. It was definitely stressful. But what would I say the biggest challenge would be? I think like one of them would definitely be fighting through like negativity, like when I first opened, because like for me personally, like I'm a very happy, positive person, and I'm not about like tearing down other people. Like I feel like I can always find something nice to say, or I'm always good at focusing on the positives. So when I got like some shitty negative feedback, like I really took that personally, and I can remember like crying on my couch the first time I got some shitty fucking like reviews on my business that like weren't even legit. And just I guess learning to not take that personally and let it like affect me, because I had to like sit down and be like, hey, you know what, at the end of the day, no matter what anyone says about me, like I still have my business and I'm still gonna like fucking work hard.
Uh-oh, you froze. Oh,
it was my
back.
battery. I'm good. I'm like still gonna work hard to like prove you wrong, and like you can't take that from me. Like you can't take what I've worked away from me. So just learning to let like the negative, and you know there's always a difference between negative feedback and like constructive criticism, which I'm all about constructive criticism. Like I've worked for like a bunch of really tough people who have been like, hey, what you did here is shitty, and let me explain to you why this sucks. I'm like, okay, thank you. Like I appreciate that. And there's a difference between that and someone basically coming out of left field to like slander you, because I get criticized when I talk about this a lot, because you know I don't want people to think like, oh, someone was mean to me, so I'm going to cry about it. Like I understand how to differentiate those two things.
Totally. No, and I think that's a really, really important point to make, that there is a difference between being critical and giving somebody constructive criticism. And like, because constructive criticism is, I see you, I want you to do the best that you possibly can do. Right. And I'm going to support you in getting there by letting you know areas where you have room for improvement. Whereas criticism is, I'm just going to stand back here and point and laugh. Yeah. Because I have negative desires for you, right? Exactly. Like they're two very different things. And
they are, yeah. And often I find when I talk about negativity is people will turn that around on me and say like, oh, well, you should learn to like take criticism. Like, no, I can. Like, I welcome criticism. Like, you can be tough to me and I appreciate that. But when someone goes out of their way to like purposely try and hurt you, like, I'm not cool with that.
Yeah. It's just disappointing more than anything, right? And I think it gets disappointing that we still live in a world, in a society where that's okay. Where like just being mean for no point is okay and acceptable, right? That's the world we live in. Like, and I can deal with it. Like you, we have a thick skin. We've been through a lot. We've heard a lot. We've had a lot said to us. But nobody likes it.
No, it sucks. Like it sucks too when you're like such a happy, like positive person, and then someone like you just like, ah, like my heart. Like I wouldn't say that to you. Like why?
Oh, yeah. We could go down that rabbit hole of psychology of why people do, but yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
It's just some people will just, and sometimes it's just to get a reaction, right? I've learned that people will say something to try and like engage you or provoke you and push your buttons. So like I've learned to just kind of like meh, like not let it
yeah.
affect me and just move on.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's a really valid point. Like, and I think that's something for a lot of people. I know when I first started out in the shop, like the guys that I would work with, I was the first woman that they'd worked with. Like they didn't know. And I think there was a certain amount of like, let's just poke and see how far it takes. Like how far we can go before she gets offended or before she
Yeah.
gets upset. So there's a certain amount of like testing
Yeah,
going on, right?
absolutely.
And because I didn't engage, it lost its fun for them,
Yeah.
right? They were playing this game of how far can we go before she gets upset, and
Right.
I just didn't engage the game, and then it became boring to them, and they stopped.
Yeah.
Right?
Like children. Right?
No, that's not to say that there weren't like many a days that I locked myself in the bathroom and cried, but
Yeah. Yeah.
that happened too. I'm not gonna lie.
Yo, oh, for sure. And like, that's another like thing that I get like a lot from, like younger women in this trade that they ask like, oh, did you ever have those days that you just felt like giving up? I'm like, yeah, man. Like
Yeah.
I had those days where like same thing. I would go in the bathroom and cry, or like I'd be so frustrated with what I was trying to do. I would just like openly cry on the shop floor, and then like the guys are like, ah, look, she's crying again. Like, and then like now, in hindsight, looking back at what I was doing, it's like seems like child's play, right? So it's like it does get easier for sure.
It does. And I think it's
Yeah.
important to know like we all have those days. Like I had weeks when I thought it wasn't going to get any better. I had months where I thought
Yeah.
about giving up. I've had days like yesterday, right? Like it wasn't that long ago when I've had days that I felt like giving up, and I think that that's human and normal, and like
For
I've been
sure.
having so many conversations with folks over these last several weeks and months, and I think the pandemic and quarantine has kind of like brought a lot of this out. But I
Hmm.
feel like a lot of people are struggling, but nobody's admitting to it.
Yeah.
And just to like hear it and be validated that you're not the only one having those feelings is so huge. And I'm tired of hearing people being sad and having self-doubt, and that's normal and human, but thinking that they're the only one doing it, and then looking at folks
Yeah.
like you or folks like myself who look to be successful on Instagram, right? And we
Yeah.
are doing our things and all of that, but to know that we're all normal and human too and have our struggles. And
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like I try my best. Like naturally I'm a positive person, but I feel like on my Instagram I try my best to like talk about like struggles in my trade, or like I have like a lot of anxiety, like a lot of days where it's like I'm just like I'm gonna die out of nowhere, right? Like no one's perfect, and I exactly what you said, like social media is like everyone just shows the perfect parts of their life, like it's just a highlight reel of how amazing everyone's life is, but like no one
yeah,
lives like that in the reality, like
no,
but I feel like there needs to be more conversations about like what sucks or what's hard, or like in your trade, like what did you struggle with? Like
yeah.
there needs to be more of that.
Okay, so along those lines, we're gonna play in preparation in advance for Fuck Up Friday coming up later this week. I'm I'm all about sharing our fuck ups and our mess ups and the things that like are the biggest like, oh damn, I can't believe I did that. Whether it's something technical or whether it's like a life choice or whether it's a whatever, like what is your biggest, and maybe now you think of it as a positive because you've learned the lessons and all of that, but what share a good juicy fuck up so that we can let our viewers know that we're all normal human beings.
Oh my god, I have so many. I can like think of one
Right?
that
That's always
like,
my answer too. I'm like,
oh my god, so
let me
one
start
that
counting the ways.
oh my god, here's one that just happened like to me the other day was so I'm like my little paint mixing computer that I would type in like paint codes. The software's outdated and like my rep's laid off, so whatever. So got the paint code, called it in. ordered the paint to paint 2 bumpers, whatever, painted it super quick. The next day I'm like looking at the bumper, looking at the car, it's a Subaru, I'm like, okay, white, car's white, but like something's wrong here. And then realized that it was a tri-coat and I got just like the base coat. So now the bumpers are like a super solid white. The whole car is like, you know, really pearl white. I'm like, could have done like a spray out, could have like checked this better. Like,
right.
You know, such like a newbie novice mistake, but I'm like, white looks good, like cheap little quick job, in and out, spray it. And I'm like, man, you know, something that would have taken me like literally 30 seconds to do a spray out. And
totally.
Yeah, that's what.
Isn't that the stuff that always gets us? Yeah. Always. It's the simple stuff in the end that winds up getting us, not the crazy complicated, like, because that's stuff we put all of our focus into. We're like, I've got this big crazy task ahead of me, I'm going to give it my all, I'm going to make sure I don't F up. But then it's like, you know, tying your shoes that you mess up. You're like, how did I?
Yeah, or it's just like it's faster to go slow is like something that has been like a challenge for me to learn. Because like, again, like, yeah, looks good, do it. Like, but if I had slowed down, taken like the 5 extra minutes to like double check, then that would have saved me, you know, all that extra time. So sometimes like hurrying and rushing to get stuff done is actually costing you more time. You end up going like 1 step forward and 2 steps backwards. So yeah, I feel like, you know, dumb stuff that happens to me all the time.
Awesome. I love it. See, we're celebrating our mistakes.
Everybody makes them, and anyone who tells you they don't is a liar.
Agreed. Amen. You started something recently on social media that I love and I want to bring up. So you've started the hashtag Shareyourtradestory.
Yeah.
So tell me, like, I love it. Tell me what's behind it, why you started it, and why, like, how that's been going.
I feel like it started when we did our live. We did one of our lives and we started asking for like a top piece of advice that you may have learned or heard through your trade journey. But then we got some responses that were really long that we couldn't read out, almost like people's stories. I'm like, hey, this would be really cool. Because, you know, I feel like, especially on Instagram, we always hear like a few certain people's stories over and over, but there's like a whole world of us out there. So like, I personally enjoy reading how people got started in their different trade. And I thought if we just created a hashtag and maybe someone who's interested in a trade could go and like read through the stories and connect with someone and like, you know, maybe find like a mentor or someone to like ask their questions to, type of thing.
Yeah. I love it. It's much needed. I feel like, especially with the trade deficit, like there's a lot of kids out there who have been, and young adults even, and probably even not so young adults, right? Who are struggling. They are looking for a path, they're looking for an option, and maybe this would be a great fit for them, but they don't know how to get their start, or they've been told that they can't, or they see the people successful and don't know how to get to that successful place, or they, like we've been talking about, they don't see the backstory of how you get from here to there, right? So I love the sharing of the stories so that people can see, like, I really believe in, if you see it, you can be it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So hearing people's stories, it gives you, like, oh, he didn't come from a great background, or she did this, or he did that, or he had this struggle or obstacle and they did it anyway. And to see that is really empowering and motivating. And
for sure. And especially with Instagram, because now it's so easy to like, you read someone's story and just like connect with that person, right? And it makes it more of like a face-to-face, like you have someone to like reach out to with your questions. Like, that's so cool. Like, that didn't exist when I was young, right? Like, it's
that's awesome. The plus side of social media, right? Like, the downside of social media is we see the sizzle reel. The plus side of social media is that you see all of these different opportunities out there that we don't otherwise get to see. I didn't. When I was growing up, social media wasn't a thing.
I know, right? I feel so old.
I know. Seriously. Somebody just commented, not so young adults represent. And I'm like, yeah, we're not so young adults.
Oh my God.
But I will always act young. So that keeps me young, right?
Yes. Yes. That's the key.
No, I'm so glad that hashtag took off and that people like were really embracing it. I think that's a really cool thing. It's been
I
fun
know.
to
I
read.
love reading people's stories and people's
Yeah.
journeys for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So folks who are reading and following this along, if you go search the hashtag share your trade story and see some really cool stories and maybe add in your own if you
Yeah,
haven't
share your
yet.
own.
Share your own, exactly. We are getting close towards the end of the amount of time that Instagram allows us. I want to check really quickly because there's a couple of questions that have popped up, so I want to make sure that we've answered all of them. I think we've kind of, by virtue of conversation, answered most of them. There's one question from another actually another female shop owner. She owns a mechanical shop down in Florida. She's asking, of the changes that you've made, if any, in your business, how many of those do you think you'll continue to do once things go back to quote unquote normal?
I think I feel like there's gonna be this whole like new normal. So, and you know what, one thing that like I've really learned in business is, and it sounds like super cheesy and cliche, but like the only constant is change. I think your business has to be constantly changing and evolving. And that was something that was like tough for me to learn as well, like even employee wise. Like, sometimes I'm like, hey, this person's here, this person's like, we got this good team, but like people are always switching out. And like, just learning to like embrace change, and that's always going to be part of your business, and just learning how to like adapt and roll with it, and just kind of, as the world's changing, like be fluid and move with it.
Yeah, amen. I think that's one of the advantages that small businesses
Yeah,
like yours and mine have, is that we
for
can
sure.
pivot quickly. We can
Yeah,
make changes and not be held back by like massive organizations. But
like
it's been
meetings with
really
shareholders and stuff like that.
right. But even that, it's been really cool to see how quickly even some of these really large companies have been adapting. It's been really interesting to watch. Like despite everything else, all the rest of the layers of emotion and whatnot, it's been interesting to watch from a sociology and like a business perspective, watching how the different companies are reacting.
For
So
sure.
yeah, I think you're right. It's new normal,
Yeah,
and I think there's a lot of the changes that will stay, and
yeah, I think so
maybe
too.
maybe some that won't, but we'll see. But
Yeah, you just got to adapt and overcome,
absolutely.
and just be ready for the next thing. Just embrace change, I guess. Like nothing's ever going to stay the same forever. So
Nope. Life would be really boring if it did.
it would.
So final words. What final words do you have to maybe the younger version of you, or somebody out there like you who's listening to this? What are your words of advice for this crazy thing called life that we've got?
Definitely like be patient, don't give up, and passion. Like if you want something bad enough, like you'll achieve it. Don't be in a hurry. That's would be one thing I could tell myself. Like, don't be in a hurry, slow down, enjoy the process. Like learning a trade, it's such an enjoyable process. Like enjoy every moment of that. Goals, like set your goals, find people that encourage you. Like I'm so grateful that I met Bogey. She's like been a mentor to me. I can always call her when I have business questions. So connecting with people who are like-minded and kind of on that same wavelength, that's so key to me. And just like positivity, keep a positive attitude. Like you can achieve anything you want to do. Like don't ever place limits on yourself. You can do it.
Awesome. I dig it. I think those are really, really important words. And finding mentors, I think, is probably one of the, I know it was for me, like finding
Yeah.
resources and people that I could be inspired by and
Yeah.
that could keep me going when I was having my low spots, and kind of
For
just
sure.
knowing, gosh, that you're gonna have low spots. Like,
Oh yeah.
that like you're gonna fall in and out of love with your job. You're gonna fall in and out of love with your business if you become a business owner, and you're gonna have highs and lows no matter what you're doing. And like that's normal and it's okay.
Absolutely. I will cheers with the last of my wine to that one.
Cheers to that. And you'll be getting one of these lovely Girl Gang garage glasses.
Oh, I know.
As a gift. Can you see that?
Yeah, that's amazing.
So you'll be getting one of those for joining me on Happy Hour. If anybody else watching this wants one, send me a message. We can hook you up with that as well. But You get one of these as a courtesy.
Awesome.
And we need to catch up more. I love you and I miss you, and it's been so good to chat with you. It's never enough time.
I know.
And, everybody watching, I hope you guys enjoyed getting to know Hillary. If you didn't know her already, make sure you go give her a like and a follow on Instagram and on Facebook, Ink and Iron Auto and Autobody Barbie. Where else can they find you if they're wanting to reach out and connect with you? Just Instagram, Facebook mostly?
Yeah, Instagram. I'm on Facebook, Hillary Ann, LinkedIn, Hillary Noak. Or Instagram's usually the best.
Awesome. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming out and joining and hanging out with Hillary and myself for the last hour or so. You guys were a lot of fun. Hillary, as always, I love you. I adore you. Everybody out there, please be safe. Take care of one another. Take care of yourselves. Keep your hands clean. And till next time, be good.